Hey there, this is Mr. Steinbauer. In this video, I am going to try to break down the concepts of feudalism and manorialism for you. You have read a little bit about this in the very first assigned reading, chapter 12, section 2, but I want to give you a chance to think about it and diagram it to be able to sort of see it visually, because these two systems, feudalism and manorialism, together really were the skeleton, if you will, of medieval European society. So in this video lecture, I'm going to talk about some key terms, including feudalism, manorialism, monarch, lord, and vassal, which are two terms that go together as a sort of relationship of one to the other, knights, and finally peasants or serfs. Okay, now before we really dig in your notebook for World History 2, on the first clean page, on the first free page, which may either be right behind your reading notes 12.2, or it may be the very first page in your notebook, I'd like you to create a diagram template similar to this one. You'll see there are 6 horizontally oriented boxes down the middle with some space in between them. And then there are 2 boxes on the left and 2 on the right. You can also give this the title Feudalism and Manorialism if you like. When you're ready, you can continue this, or you can just create this as we go. Okay, now starting out, filling in this diagram, which is going to represent the sort of social, economic, and political structure of European kingdoms in the Middle Ages. At the top and center, we should put the monarch. Now, monarch is a general term for folks like the king, the queen, the emperor, the empress, the ruler of these kinds of societies. And then next down below them in this structure are folks that are both lords and vassals. And so you can put lord/vassal there. But what these are members of the nobility or nobles. You may have heard titles from like medieval references to pop, or medieval references in pop culture, like a duke or a duchess, an earl, a count or a countess, those kinds of titles. These are all people who were nobles, and they can be both lords and vassals. Now, the monarchs would give out portions of their land. These are called fiefs, the land that they would give out, and they would give them to a member of the nobility. Okay, and that member of the nobility would become the lord of that fief. They had total control over what happened in that territory and the people that lived on that land. But they're also a vassal of the person above them in the system. So the highest ranking lord in this particular area is a vassal of the king or the queen who granted them that land, or who may have granted their ancestors that land. Okay, and then the lord in this level may subdivide their own giant fief into other smaller pieces and grant it to other folks, other lower nobility, who would become the lord of that land, but also the vassal of the person above them in the social structure. Now, some of the lower nobility, or younger nobility in some cases, were folks called the knights. And of course, you've probably seen some knights in popular culture, movies, books, video games, who knows, board games. Knights are were professional soldiers, but they were also lower ranking members of the nobility, and they played a very important role in this system, which was really to grant protection, to help protect the kingdom. Okay. Now, the lowest members of medieval society were poor farmers, people we would typically call peasants, but in many cases, specific type of peasant called a serf. And a serf is essentially a person who is not free. So in some ways, serfdom, the condition of being a serf, is a little bit like slavery, because these folks were sort of like tied to the land. They almost were considered included with the land, if you will. However, they were not like enslaved people, in that they could not be sold to somebody else, to another noble. They could not be bought and sold in the way that slaves were treated, like literal items of property. It's not exactly the same as that. However, serfs had very limited rights and were almost totally controlled by the lord of their land. Okay. Now, these people all are connected or related to one another basically through the land, which was the main resource here, through service and loyalty, which was often given in exchange for the land, and then finally for labor or making food in the case of the serfs at the bottom of the social structure. So, of course, we talked a little bit about how land was divided and given in these things called fiefs, basically just a parcel of land, starting with the monarch and then down, okay, into lower and lower layers or levels of this system. So essentially, by giving that land out, the king or queen created a sort of a government structure, right? In a way, a pyramid, except they gave a lot of the power over what happened in these local territories, these local areas, to the lord who ruled directly over the people and the land in that area. Now, flowing back up in exchange was loyalty and service, which largely came in the form of providing knights for the protection of the kingdom and to go and fight perhaps other kingdoms. Or in the middle ranks here, you would even have some lords, perhaps within a kingdom, fighting the lords of other fiefs. Okay, so that's where the knights came in. They played a very specific purpose within their local areas of providing that form of service and loyalty back up the chain of the feudal system. And then also rents were charged in a way to the peasants at the bottom of the chain, who had to contribute most of the food, or at least all the food surplus, back up. And that's essentially in a way you could say, the currency that kept the society running. So this system has two pieces. It has a political side and it has an economic side. When we talk about the political piece, when we talk about how land is given and service is exchanged for that, and the loyalty that is owed to the people above you in this structure, that's called feudalism. Feudalism is really about the relationships between the nobles and the royalty. When we talk about the economic relationship, which isn't at any particular level, but especially between the peasants and the next level of nobility above them, we're talking about manorialism, because we are talking about, in this case, the word manorialism comes from the manor. The manor is the house and the land controlled by a particular noble. And the manor houses of the various lords grew into castles because they had to protect themselves. And the lords and their lands basically defined the entire economy of these local areas. Now, here's an important point I want to emphasize. This system has very little freedom in it, right? Everybody has obligations to the people above them. And except, of course, for the king or queen who sit at the top of this pyramid. This is really not about freedom. It's about your relationships to those other higher ranking people. But it is mostly about security, because life in medieval Europe was extremely dangerous, insecure. For most people, it was a fairly poor way of living. Even the members of the nobility were not as comfortable as the rich and famous in today's world by any stretch of the imagination. They had a great deal of power over the people below them in this system. In fact, they had total power over the people who were committed to them in this system. But life was dangerous and uncertain, and therefore security was super important. And that's why this system was really durable and really kind of defined life in medieval Europe for close to 1,000 years. And we see it often in popular culture. So just make sure you understand how these various pieces of this system fit together. Before you come to class next time, I want you to try to think of some examples of where we see this structure, maybe the different pieces in it, or the system overall in popular culture, whether it's in books, movie, TV, games, and so on? And secondly, why do you think it's such a common reference for people? Why do you think it has stood the test of time as something people are interested in the popular culture? So think about that. Make a list. If you read Crispin, you're good, because that can serve as your list of connections between this system and popular culture. Thanks for listening.